It was a cold November morning in 2011 when I came across it. A Craigslist ad for a $300 per week caretaker job, living in a mobile trailer on a 600-acre farm in rural Ohio. The ad sounded perfect. Quiet, outdoors, peaceful. Just what I needed after feeling stuck in a dead-end job. I thought it was genuine. I emailed Jack, the man who posted it, and we arranged to meet at a local diner. He said he'd bring his nephew, a quiet kid, to show me the property afterward. I felt comfortable. He seemed calm, kind. Scores of men were looking for something like what he offered. On November 6th, I drove to the diner. I met Jack, and the teenager he said was his nephew. The teenager stayed quiet, head down, earbuds in. Jack bought the coffee, chatted me up as we talked farming logistics. I didn't sense anything bad. He told me, "Let's take a look." We followed him in his white Buick. We drove down rough gravel roads, away from cell service, deeper into the woods. When we got out, he casually said, "Let's carry some tools." He handed me an empty box. I walked a few steps ahead. Then I heard a shot. My elbow caught the bullet. It exploded in pain. I cried out and ran. Over 7 hours, I staggered through the woods in the dark. They took me to the hospital. I told them everything, Jack, his nephew, the farm. Police traced my steps using GPS and security video from the diner. They realized I wasn't the first man to answer that ad. They found a fresh grave near where I was shot. Nearby, the body of David Pauly, a man who answered the same ad months earlier. He'd been shot in the head. That triggered a massive investigation. Authorities uncovered 2 more victims, Ralph Geiger and Timothy Kern. Middle-aged men lured exactly like I had been. Every clue pointed to the same pair, Jack and his teenage helper, who turned out to really be 16-year-old Brogan Rafferty, manipulated into joining. Jack was arrested weeks later. His real name was Richard Beasley, a wanted fugitive using a stolen identity. The teenager, Brogan, was just a pawn who believed Jack was mentoring him. Beasley told investigators he had planned it all. He posted the job, watched men come, built graves ahead of time. He killed them to steal their identity and equipment. He sold their belongings and used it all to stay hidden. Beasley was convicted in 2013 and sentenced to death. Brogan Rafferty got life. What haunts me most is how every detail seemed normal at first. The ad, the handshake, the drive down quiet roads. I genuinely felt lucky to have escaped, but I never slept well again. I reflected on how we trust strangers we meet online, how a simple job posting can turn deadly with someone who is calculating, patient, prepared. Authorities called our case cautionary, warning Craigslist users to meet in public and always tell someone your plans. They emphasized it wasn't rare. Beasley was just one of many predators exploiting trust. I've never posted another resume or accepted a job without screening it thoroughly. I never visit remote land without someone knowing. But even today, sometimes I get an urge to double-check my phone location. Because for weeks, I was the caretaker, and I survived. But 3 men didn't. That job ad could have been the end of my story. I had just turned 29 when I took the Patrick McNeil case. It was March 1997. Cold, gray, the kind of Manhattan weather where steam rises from manhole covers like ghosts stretching after sleep. Patrick was a Fordham University student who'd gone missing after a night out with friends. When they pulled his body from the East River weeks later, everyone said it was just a tragic drowning. Case closed, but I was there when they dragged him out. The kid's body didn't look like it had been in the water for weeks. His skin was too intact, and there were strange ligature-like marks on his neck. Things didn't add up. As I walked the area near the riverbank where he was found, something caught my eye. A simple, sloppy spray-painted smiley face on a nearby retaining wall. Over the next year, I took notice every time a young man went missing near water. A college athlete in Wisconsin, a bartender in Pittsburgh, each found drowned days or weeks later, miles from where they were last seen. Many were last spotted leaving bars late at night. Most were athletic, white, clean-cut, the kind of guys you see on recruitment brochures. It became an obsession. I mapped them. I printed photos. I started seeing more than coincidence. Then I teamed up with two former NYPD detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte. They had independently tracked a similar series of drownings. Together, we pooled our cases, over 40 across multiple states. And at nearly a dozen of those sites, smiley faces, always crudely painted, sometimes cheerful, sometimes twisted. One had horns, another had excess for eyes. I remember staring at one by the Mississippi River in Minneapolis and thinking, this is someone's calling card. But the theory that these were homicides, not accidents, was dismissed by almost everyone. The FBI, local PDs, even some of our former colleagues. But we couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or a group, was hunting these men, playing with us. In 2006, I sat with the parents of Chris Jenkins in their living room in Minnesota. He had disappeared on Halloween night 4 years prior. Police said he'd gotten drunk, wandered off, and drowned. But there were scratches on his hands. His clothes were oddly arranged, and he was still wearing his Halloween costume when they found him. We pushed. Eventually, the case was reclassified as a homicide. That moment cracked something open in me. If Chris was murdered, what about the others? Why weren't more departments willing to reopen cases? We found patterns that chilled us. Many victims had small traces of GHB, a drug commonly used in date assaults. Others had wounds inconsistent with accidental drowning. And yet, the moment you mentioned the smiley faces, people stopped listening. It sounded too bizarre, like an urban legend. But when I revisited a site in Ohio, where 22-year-old Joey LaBoot vanished, there it was again, freshly painted, almost bright, smiley, staring at the river. We never caught them. We don't even know if they exist. But I know what I've seen. I know what I've lost sleep over. I've sat across from too many mothers whose sons were written off as drunk accidents. I've read too many autopsies that don't align with timelines. And I've stood beside too many bodies that look too clean. There's a theory that it's a network, an underground group, some digital cult that selects victims, targets them, toys with them. The smiley face is the last joke. I still keep the case files in a locked cabinet in my basement. Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. thinking I hear water dripping. And I remember the kid we found in Iowa, arms crossed like he was laid to rest. The last smiley I saw was behind an abandoned warehouse in St. Paul. It had tears, a joke to everyone else. But I think I know who's laughing. My name's Lisa Monroe, 24. I had just started a summer internship at a tech firm in suburban Boston. That Friday evening, after a brutal work week, I decided to treat myself, ordering Thai takeout and heading to my boyfriend's place about 30 miles away to unwind and prep for the weekend. Around 7:30 p.m., the sky opened up. A steady summer rain, warm but relentless. I hopped on the highway in my compact hatchback, half excited and half exhausted. Traffic was light, water pooling around the tires as I drove. I was flooded in the car with nostalgia. Weekend ahead, work behind, and a plan to finally relax with Charlie. That's when I noticed the one behind me. A mid-sized black SUV tailgating close, lights on high beam, engine rumbling. I passed and changed lanes. It matched every move. I shrugged it off, maybe a commuter trying to push ahead, but it stuck. By the time I turned off the highway onto a wet exit ramp, I saw the SUV do the same turn, cleanly, quickly, then slow, letting me pull ahead before flooring it and tailing me again through every red light. I rounded a corner near the industrial parks, terrace roads, dim street lamps, shuttered storefronts. The black SUV followed me there too, always a few car lengths behind. I switched off the radio, breathing hard, focusing on the steering wheel's grip. When I reached the turn for Charlie's neighborhood, a narrow side street with old oaks arching overhead, the SUV turned too. I thought about pulling into a gas station, but none were nearby. My phone had one bar, enough for a call. I tried Charlie, straight to voicemail. Just as I slowed for the residential street, the SUV flicked its brights off, then on, then off, then back on. It was like a warning. I squeezed the wheel and passed the first driveway. I flipped my hazard lights on, a universal alarm, and pulled over to the left, hoping it would pass me by. Instead, the SUV did the same, matching me in dark silence. I looked at my rear view again. The driver's face was obscured by water running over the windshield, but I could see movement, someone inside. Finally, I saw lights of Charlie's apartment building up ahead. I signaled to turn in, hard in my throat. As soon as I entered the lot, the SUV followed. I parked, cut the engine, and fumbled for the lock. In my peripheral vision, I saw an arm reaching out, fingers tapping the glass. I managed to click the lock, but the SUV didn't back off. It idled with the engine rumbling. I scanned the lot. No security booth, only empty cars and dull rows. The driver still outside. I hopped out and ran across the wet pavement toward Charlie's door. My heels sank in puddles, my jacket drenched. I reached the door, pounded on it, yelling. Two more sets of footsteps came from inside, Charlie and his roommate. They opened the door, bewildered. I slammed inside and nearly collapsed. Charlie's roommate called 911. Through the window, I saw the SUV slowly drive off, no rush, no headlights. Just drift away in the rain. The police came in minutes. I gave my statement. The highway tailing, the ramp turn, the gesture, the SUV following into the lot. They took the plate, but the plate came back unregistered. They searched the lot. No sign of the driver. No footprints in the rain. Just the puddles and the soundtrack of rain hitting the asphalt. It felt like whoever was just disappeared. I stayed that weekend at a friend's place. The cops called back. They found a car parked in an alley 2 miles away. Empty. No driver. No prints. Spice rack on the seat. No ID. I moved within a month. I quit that highway route. I avoid shopping alone at night. I started keeping pepper spray. But most unsettling, the next time it rained heavily and I slowed for a stop, my heart skipped thinking, what if the SUV's still behind me? Because I know they'll always be halfway there, trailing, waiting. My name's Chris Daniels, alias, and this happened during a church youth camp in Colorado about 4 years ago. I was 16, a counselor in training, excited and nervous to prove myself. We were a group of about 30 teen campers, fellow trainees, and a handful of adult counselors, all hiking and camping together. We set off mid-afternoon on a summer day, weaving through dense marshlands and evergreen forests. The trail wound upward into a grove of standing dead trees, an eerie, muffled place that felt like the forest's breath had stopped. Along the path, I was walking at the back with Jordan, 17, and 2 younger campers. We lost sight of the group around a bend. The forest thickened, sunlight dimmed, and conversation felt hushed in fear of breaking the strange calm. After 20 minutes, the trail straightened. That's when we saw him. A scruffy man. He stared us down. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Jordan gave a half wave and said, "Hi there." The man whispered, "Going camping?" Jordan hesitated, then nodded. The man grinned, almost too wide, then said, "Better be careful." He held our gaze for a long moment before stepping off the trail. We exhaled in unison and hurried back to the rest of the group, telling a counselor what happened. They assumed he lived in the area and shrugged it off. But we weren't so sure. That night, half the counselors went out for special privileged snacks, including Jordan and me. The woods near the river were bare except for 2 counselors and Jordan's younger brother. We returned, wrapped up in low voices and half-stories. Once back, we lit drinks and told spooky tales by lantern light. Jet mist hovered over the fire. Around midnight, something broke the rhythm of our stories. Footsteps near the other tents. Crunching pine needles, soft but distinct. We froze, the light from our lanterns flickering across worried faces. One counselor whispered, "It's probably an animal." But I didn't think so. It sounded human, purposeful. We turned off the lights and huddled quietly. The footsteps circled our tent. And then someone started pacing just 3 feet from my sleeping side. I lay still, heart pounding. I felt a hand brush my tent fabric. A pause. A zipper unlatched. I froze. I thought it was Jordan, but when the figure lay down behind me and pulled someone close, I felt wrongness too cold, too fast. I unzipped quietly, thinking it was Jordan returning. But outside stood 2 figures, one holding a flashlight beam in my direction. I was sure it was Jordan's voice until he called out, "Sorry, it's just me." But he had no jacket, didn't know where my sleeping bag was, and Jordan's identical hoodie was missing. My throat clenched in fear. I tried to whisper, "Who's out there?" Jordan didn't hear. I'd shouted it, but the figure stayed motionless outside. The zipper made one more faint rip before it stopped. The voice from outside repeated my words back to me in a low, mocking mimic, causing my blood to freeze. The figure didn't move for several tense seconds. My body refused to move. Then Jordan said, "I'll check the tent," and suddenly flipped on his flashlight. The beam illuminated a stranger's silhouette against our tent's walls. Tall, lean, crouched low. We screamed and ran toward the counselors. The stranger dropped the flashlight and vanished into the dark. We never saw him again. By dawn, the campers were shaken. Counselors called the sheriff. They told us they would search, but no footprint paths, no flashlight left behind, no clue except the hole in the tent wall. Later, Jordan found his hoodie, tied mysteriously around a tree stump near the trail entrance. No one placed it there. No one touched it. Not even Jordan. We left early that morning. The counselors scolded us for endangering the group, but many of us were terrified and angry that no one took us seriously. There was no motive. No physical scars, just mental ones. Jordan's hoodie still hangs in my closet as a reminder. I haven't been camping since, but sometimes late at night, especially when I'm far from home, I swear I hear footsteps by my door, slow. Purposeful. Something followed us that night.